The battlefield journey of Sawyer. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a faint orange glow across the barren battlefield. Sawyer, a young soldier barely in his 20s, stood at the edge of the camp, adjusting his gear. He took a quick glimpse at the horizon, where the fog from the night before was slowly lifting. It revealed the eerie sight of no man's land, a desolate stretch scattered with remnants of war. Broken helmets, shattered weapons, and the silence of destruction. The rest of his unit prepared to move forward, Sawyer's thoughts began to wander. His mind drifted to the time before the war, to the days when life was simple. He remembered playing with his siblings in the fields, the laughter and the warmth of home. But the loud call of his commander snapped him back to the present. There was no room for daydreaming here. This was the reality of war. The unit advanced cautiously, weaving through the muddy trenches and bomb craters. Everything about the battlefield felt peculiar, the stillness, the lack of sound, and the occasional distant rustle that made the soldiers grip their weapons tighter. Sawyer couldn't shake off the feeling that something was watching them. As they approached a cluster of ruined buildings, Sawyer saw a small, abandoned dog wagging its tail weakly among the rubble. Despite the danger, he crouched down and embraced the trembling creature. "You're just as lost as we are," he whispered, softly to the dog before setting it down and moving on with his team. Suddenly, a loud explosion erupted nearby, shaking the ground beneath them. Dirt and debris were scattered everywhere, and chaos ensued. Sawyer was thrown to the ground, his ears ringing. He quickly scrambled to his feet and scanned the area, searching for his comrades. The smoke was thick, and visibility was low. Through the haze, he saw his friend, Corporal Evans, struggling to stand after being hit by the shockwave. Sawyer ran to him, but as he approached, he saw Evans stumble and collapse again. "I've got you!" Sawyer yelled, lifting Evans onto his shoulder and dragging him toward cover. Once behind a shattered wall, Sawyer checked on Evans, who was bleeding but conscious. "You hesitated out there," Evans managed to say between breaths. "But you came back for me." Sawyer nodded, his heart pounding. "There's no room for hesitation out here, but sometimes it's hard." The battle raged on as the unit gathered near the ruins to regroup. Their captain gave quick orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. Sawyer listened intently, trying to block out the sound of gunfire and explosions. The enemy was advancing, and they needed to hold their ground. As the soldiers prepared to push forward, Sawyer heard a faint whisper among the ruins. He turned, but no one was there. The sound sent a chill down his spine, but he had no time to investigate. The fight was calling, and he had to focus. The unit charged, pushing back against the enemy. Sawyer fired his weapon, his adrenaline carrying him through the fear. But just as victory seemed within reach, the enemy suddenly began to vanish into the dense smoke. It was a tactic to retreat and regroup, but it left Sawyer and his team uneasy. Where would they strike next? By the end of the day, the battlefield fell silent again. Sawyer sat on a fallen tree, staring at the setting sun. He thought about the day's events, the moments of courage and fear. He felt a strange mix of relief and guilt for surviving when others hadn't. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, Sawyer whispered to himself, "One day this will end. One day we'll all go home." He looked at the dog he had saved earlier, now curled up beside him. "And until then, I'll fight for them, for us, for a better tomorrow." The war was far from over, but Sawyer knew that every step forward, no matter how small, was a step toward peace.